Every year in New York City, millions of people gather along Eastern Parkway on Labor Day to celebrate Caribbean culture and the West Indian American Day Parade, better known as Carnival. Since the early 20th century, Carnival has united New Yorkers from all across the city looking to immerse themselves in West Indian culture and traditions through dance, costumes, music, and food. But how did one of the most colorful festivals in the world make its way to the Big Apple? And what exactly is the historical significance behind Carnival in the Caribbean? Cecile Ford, board member at the West Indian American Day Carnival Association, told us more.
In the days of slavery, the slaves imitated the masters of the plantations. They would have Mardi Gras balls just before the beginning of Lent.
In Trinidad in the 1800s, there were already a number of free black people along with French immigrants, Spanish settlers, and British nationals. Then with the end of slavery in 1834, the now completely free Trinidadian populace could celebrate their native culture and embrace their freedom through music, dancing, and costumes.
Slaves had the drums and they would beat together and dress in similar costume to their slave masters and to the plantation owners. And thus started the celebration of Carnival.
Over the decades, as Caribbean locals began migrating to North America, South America, and Europe, they brought the spirit of Carnival with them. Carnival is celebrated internationally, from New York to London to Spain, and in different islands across the entire region along the Caribbean coast. Still, Rio, Brazil, and Trinidad host the largest carnivals the world has ever seen. Here in New York City, Trinidadian native Jessie Waddell helped shape the West Indian Day Parade as we know it today. At the time, Waddell staged parties in the Harlem West Indian American community. These events were held in large enclosed spaces like the Savoy, Renaissance, and Audubon ballrooms due to the cold, wintry weather of February. But because of the very nature of Carnival and the desire to celebrate in costume with festive music, the indoor arenas didn't work out well.
Jessie Waddell started having these dances or masquerade balls in Harlem, but she eventually brought it out into the streets of Harlem, portraying what we would have in the Caribbean as Carnival.
But when the Harlem Street permit for Carnival was revoked in 1964 due to a violent riot, Waddell met with local Trinidadian native Carlos Lizama to move the location of the parade. At the time, Lizama was the head of the West Indian American Day Carnival Association and obtained a permit for the parade to be held on Eastern Parkway. Under the guidance of the association, the parade expanded and has since grown into one of the biggest parades in New York City, with its permanent home now being along Brooklyn's Eastern Parkway.
Now this organization has been surviving 54 years here in the U.S. They wanted to keep this culture alive, and it is a part of what makes us Caribbean people. It is, as you know now, spread all over the world, but here in New York has been celebrated the longest.
Yearly, the parade attracts 1 to 3 million spectators and participants from around the world to the streets of Brooklyn to eat, dance, and experience the jubilant atmosphere of the West Indies. The prime Brooklyn location has also become sort of a cultural row that reflects the different islands of the Caribbean. The electrifying yearly celebration instills pride in New Yorkers from all across the islands, putting Caribbean culture on full display as the sounds of the steel pans flood the streets and vibrant, colorfully costumed crowds take over.
Every Caribbean culture is truly on that parkway come Labor Day weekend. Every culture we try to represent in our events and what we bring. A band is usually a group that is made up of costumed individuals parading the street. The band chooses a theme that they would present. The participants of each section is called a masquerader.
Over the years, costumes have become more and more elaborate for the parade. Parade goers can expect to see masqueraders decked out from head to toe with rhinestones, feathers, glitter, and glam as they dance and strut down the parkway. Designers are asked to create a costume in a variety of styles that are often inspired by natural and spiritual elements, mythical creatures, political events, or pop culture. In New York, Sesame Carnival has been designing costumes for the masqueraders in the parade for more than 30 years.
We have 3 different designs. We have what we call a backline, which is the most simplest costume. It's pretty much either one piece or a 2-piece that's decorated. And then we would go to sometimes a midline or a frontline costume, which is a little bit more elaborate. It may have a larger headpiece. It may have a backpack with feathers in the back. It may have more elaborate leg pieces and arm pieces and more bejeweled. And then there's the individual piece, and we only make one of those, and that is a big, elaborate costume, that we only make one of for the entire section.
Eye-catching costumes are recognized every year with various prizes. Sesame Flyers has the longest record in Labor Day Carnival history of being the band to hold the first place title in the large band category. But in 2020, after more than 5 decades of revelers and masqueraders taking over Brooklyn, the in-person parade came to a halt as parades and celebrations were canceled worldwide due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Think about Carnival, which, us in the Carnival world call, Carnival Jumbie. Jumbie is a spirit. So every year there's a different Carnival Jumbie. This last 2 years it was COVID, but that doesn't mean the spirit of Carnival is not still alive. And so what keeps us, motivated is that spirit. We put on our costume, we open our eyes, we're outside, we're in company with other revelers. The spirit of Carnival takes over.
And while the pandemic has now canceled the West Indian Day Parade for 2 consecutive years, the spirit of Carnival remains alive in countless communities around New York City. In Brooklyn, many store owners are sending a message of Caribbean nostalgia as vendors make it their mission to give this community a piece of home year-round. Shelly and Khalid Hamid, the owners of Crown Heights' beloved ice cream shop, Island Pops, are serving up some Caribbean flavor to tourists and locals alike.
We don't sell ice cream or ice pops, we sell nostalgia and longing. And so when people come into our shop, every single flavor reminds them of something. We sell the experience of going back to the island, especially with COVID. It sort of brought that taste of home to them that they didn't have,
You come to our shop, you're going to feel like it's an island oasis. It's all about bringing you back to the islands.
Caribbean migration to New York City has been prevalent since the early 1900s. Today, Caribbean immigrants represent 10% of the 44.5 million immigrants in the United States, with a vast majority coming from just 5 countries: Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Haiti, and Trinidad and Tobago. More than 600,000 New Yorkers are of Caribbean descent, many of whom now reside in Brooklyn.
Moving to America from Trinidad was one of the toughest things. My community definitely helped me with find that transition between work and play. Providing outlets where you come downstairs and you could hang out with someone who's familiar, have a conversation and take a break. Coming from Trinidad, which is a smaller island, and then coming into America, which is such a wealth of different cultures, it's easy to lose yourself and struggle to keep your identity while trying to adapt. Being within a West Indian community and having neighbors and people in the community, shop owners, that remind you of who you are because they might sound like you, that definitely was helpful.
From Crown Heights to its neighboring Flatbush, many restaurants and shops are able to represent Caribbean influence in Brooklyn. This enclave, known as Little Caribbean, has created a communal space for people to gather and celebrate their lives back in the West Indies. Shelley Worrell, founder of Caribbean, an organization dedicated to showcasing Caribbean culture, art, and film in NYC, shared her experience.
The unique thing of Brooklyn is the diversity in the Caribbean community. What I see as a lifelong native is that you have people from effectively everywhere. You have Dominicans, you have Trinidadians, Jamaicans, Haitians, Vincentians, Bayesians, Grenadians, Guyanese, just everyone lives here. You can island hop in Flatbush. So you can go from a Haitian bakery to Jamaican jerk chicken to a Trinidadian roti shop to a Guyanese pepper pot to a Caribbean themed drum bar like the Rogers Garden. So you can really have that full Caribbean experience here in Brooklyn.
The impact that Caribbean culture has had on the city of New York and its surrounding neighborhoods has been nothing short of impactful. From music to food to politics, those of West Indian descent have been able to actively contribute to making New York the cultural melting pot that it is today. And while celebrations such as Carnival originated back on the islands, the spirit of Carnival remains carved into the streets of Brooklyn today.
We have thriving Caribbean communities in Brooklyn and New York City, like Little Caribbean. There are a lot of small businesses that you can come and experience firsthand. We are not only Caribbean one day a year or one weekend a year. I mean, this is a community that has been living here for decades, and that's a part of the city every day. And that's past, present, and for generations to come.